Welcome back to the final Rebels Edge of the week. I'm Jon Najarian, my brother Pete joining shortly, and we're going to be talking about whether or not Micron was able to lift the entire market. And we have the answer, and it is yes, but there is a little comma and then a couple dots, and we're going to fill in those dots for you on today's Rebels Edge. Bang. How you doing, Pete?
I'm doing good. How is the? I imagine you're getting closer to the end of the boat cruise or whatever.
Yeah, and my liver is thanking me for that because it's having to process an awful lot of Chateau Neuf de Pape, Pete. Say that 3 times fast. Chateau Neuf de Pape, Pete.
Not gonna happen for me. It's gonna go somewhere bad.
It probably won't happen for me after about 9 o'clock tonight either. But, well, let's dive right into macro, Pete.
Yep.
As you know, folks, we only do the show Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Although, Pete, we might actually have a couple sponsors, 8 sponsors lining up for the TV version of the Rebels Edge. So we hope to bring you more news on that next week. But in the meantime, big reversal today, Pete. Micron did indeed do what we thought it could do, which was they reported fantastic earnings. And once again, if the demand is higher and the supply is the same, prices are going up. And that was great news for about an hour and a half. And then Apple all of a sudden says, yeah, well, the fact that prices are going up is great for them. It ain't great for us, and we're going to pass on the cost to our customers. And as soon as Apple said that, Pete, everybody went hands out for anything that wasn't just one of those chips that was making the memory. And they sold the NASDAQ from a 1% gain to a 3% drop. But then it came roaring right back. How do you figure, Pete?
I'll tell you what, John, I've not seen the markets make the kind of moves that it made like it did today, early on specifically. I can't remember ever seeing anything quite like that. It was absolutely all over the place, right? I mean, the sell-off looked legit. It looked like, okay, well, great numbers for Micron, not for everybody else, and it moved to the downside. But that didn't last very long. As a matter of fact, it didn't last very long at all. The next thing you know, they start buying again, right? We get the Dow starts to move back up into positive territory in a big way, and the NASDAQ starts to actually eat up a little bit of the sell-off that it was making, which was pretty substantial. So amazing, yes. Volatile, yes. I mean, check out just about every box, but I think you explained it very, very well. I think Micron was certainly the catalyst, and that catalyst, when it starts rubbing up against something like an Apple, that does change things a little bit just about everywhere. So, yeah, very, very interesting start to the day. And things are starting to calm down a little bit now, John, I think. But, you never know. As the day goes on, suddenly somebody might say something that triggers another something in this whole world that we're looking at. So interesting for sure, and a crazy start for the day.
Yep. Well, the $1 trillion club, which has 4 members, Micron is one of them, folks. That $1 trillion club pushed the market to the upside. And then when Apple, also a member of the $1 trillion club, fell, it really triggered a lot of selling, Pete, across the board, just like you're saying. So we'll keep our eye on exactly what's going on and see whether or not we can find some great opportunities, because sometimes when they sell it that fast, it creates an opportunity. And I wish I would have bought on that drop today, Pete, but I didn't. All right. What happened with the VIX with all that up and down and up in the market?
Well, it's interesting, John. Pretty calm, relatively speaking. I mean, you're looking at it, and we've been so volatile of late, and a little bit wider and wider and wider range. So I would say really wasn't crazy, but at the same, it started off a little ho hum. Here we were, the VIX was trading around 18. Next thing you know, all of a sudden we get this big spike, and then next thing you know, it pulls back again. So interesting to watch how the volatility index itself was moving around, for all the right reasons, by the way, because the S&P was really flying around just like the rest of the market. It got hit pretty hard, but then it started to make a nice move to the upside. I think that because of that, there's a little extra something in the VIX today that's holding it up where it is right now, John, but understandably so, basically, right? I mean, but the range, call it 18 to 20, still a decent range, but interesting because at any moment, I think we could see this thing spike right back up to 20 or start to maybe get easing back towards 18 because of the fact that we're getting close to the weekend, right? It's Thursday. And, we got one more trading day. So interesting is probably the best way to describe what this market has looked like in the first couple of hours of the day.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the month of June and Ethereum, Pete, because what price will Ethereum hit in June? We saw a big jump as Ethereum fell today, among other days. It's been weak, but basically the heavy money is on the basically under 1,500, but it's still there at the 1,400 level too, as you guys can see on your screen. About 20% of the bets right now are coming in that it'll be under 1,400. That's about a $400,000 bet. The 1,500, in other words, 1,400 to about 1,500 is where the majority of the money is right now. But man, these cryptos, Pete, have been weak and weak and weak.
Well, and we established today with Bitcoin, John, down there all the way down at 58,121. I mean, so it's just something that's remarkable. And one of the stocks that used to follow this pretty closely, I think it probably still is to some degree, but Robinhood has been one of those names where, and you take a look at the charts of Robinhood, you see that thing, the way it moved up in a big way when we had some great numbers that were going on. And, obviously the 52-week range was a lot closer to the high end of things. But that movement has been absolutely incredible. And there's quite a few different stocks that seem to follow pretty closely along with that. So, looking at some of those things that you're talking about there with Ethereum, interesting, and looking at what's going on with Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin underneath 60,000. I'm not really hearing anybody on TV talking much about that either. They're talking about this, talking about that, which I understand. Micron, big story. Apple, big story. The markets themselves. But I don't hear people talking as much about what's going on in that world, John, the Bitcoin and Ethereum and so forth. So it'd be interesting to hear what some of the folks want to say about that right now, because I'll tell you what, Bitcoin's in a bit of a free fall right now. And it's going to be interesting to see when does that actually finally turn, because maybe it continues down and establishes even lower numbers for the 52 week. So interesting to see where we are right now.
It could absolutely do that, Pete. Well, let's talk a little bit about small cap spotlight. And this is a part of the show where we get to tell you about what's going on in some small cap stocks. In some cases, this happens to be one of them. Pete and I are definitely involved with this stock. I believe we're both advisors to the board, paid advisors, but ZSQR, Pete. They entered into a binding letter of intent to acquire a majority membership in an interest of Paradox Data LLC. And the deal is basically $5 million. It's going to be a convertible preferred stock. And the reason that we think you guys should know about it is it's basically about megawatts of power that they can deliver and that they need as a data center. And so when you look at what they're doing, Z Squared, folks, it used to be a miner. What they use that compute for these days is they're an infrastructure company that offers basically their compute to the AI infrastructure, meaning that they're a data center player. And as soon as they said that, the stock started to get giddy, Pete, and getting more power, which is something that they need, of course. Every data center does. But the reason that these guys, I think, are so successful right now is, number one, they've already got the permits. They've already got the acreage. They've already got the power. And now this deal with Paradox gives them even more power, which means, of course, that they can run more compute. So basically, they're going to be able to support in excess of 150 megawatts of on-site power generation. And that's important. When you talk about, Colossus with Elon Musk, that's the biggest that there's ever been as far as a data center. But people like Kevin O'Leary and other folks are trying to make competing really big data centers. But what they don't have in many cases are the permits, the fact that it's going to take you years to get that permitting through, and then you need the power. Well, these guys just locked up some more power, Pete. So that's why it's so positive. I know you and I, this is all public knowledge, folks. This came out in the disclosure early this morning or late last night. And that's why Pete and I were kind of smiling, because one of our friends who's with the company, Jim, I'll spare his last name, but Jim was saying, "Did you guys see what just happened?" And we said, "Yep, we did." And we're going to cover it on the Small Cap Spotlight.
Yeah.
So once again, you guys should know that we are paid consultants to the board. We love the company, and always do your own work. Don't just buy it because Pete and Jon are in it. But I think it's a great company with a lot of upside here, Pete. And I know you feel the same.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's just really well run. And I think that they understand as much as anybody out there on where this could go into the future. So yeah, I think this one's very interesting, and we're just, we're fortunate enough to be the folks that are a part of this whole thing. And you know what? It's going to be a big deal, I think, and it's becoming a bigger deal all the time for so many, Jon, in this world. We talk about data centers all the time. You hear it on TV all the time. These guys are right there in the thick of things.
Yep. On the East Coast and Carolina and so forth. Pete's even already been down there to visit them. I haven't been there yet, Pete, but I'm going to. So anyway, that's our Small Cap Spotlight for ZSQR, which is known as Z squared. All right, Pete, let's talk about Micron. Yesterday, you said, I think they're going to beat. I think they're going to give some positive guidance. They did both. And they said they expect adjusted earnings between 30 and 32 a share, well above the 27, or rather the 25.72 level that people were estimating. So this is pretty much a blowout quarter for them. They were up as much as 20%, Pete. They pulled back a little, but still, this is, sales to data centers, just what we were talking about, except these guys don't provide the power. They help provide the compute for data centers.
Yeah, absolutely, Jon. I mean, they couldn't have crushed it any better than they did. I mean, absolutely incredible. You look at what happened in Q3 and also what the expectations are for Q4. They're looking at 30 to 32 bucks. It was estimated at about $25 or more, 25 and a quarter and 3/4, I should say. It's just an amazing quarter. Now, that's amazing for Micron. It's probably a little bit fearful for some of the others, and I know we're going to talk about that as well, but the expectations were extreme, and yet they still managed to get over the top of that. So Micron is really flying pretty well. You saw that chart. The chart itself speaks for itself. I mean, this is a stock that was up, 14, 16, 18%, whatever it was, Jon, and then pulled back a little bit. Now it's kind of somewhere between, call it 10 and 14%, maybe. It's a pretty nice little range that it's in, but nonetheless higher. And this is really, really impressive to see what they're holding on to right now.
Yep, it surely is. And I know we've had in the past, Pete, strong buying activity, but folks, believe it or not, that buying activity was at 300, at 400, and so forth. The stock's now over $1,100, $1,195 a share. And that's this year. In April, you could have been buying it with a 300 handle, and now it's $1,195. Just an amazing move. All right, let's talk about Merck, Pete, and what they're doing with this biotechny, because they're going to buy them apparently. This TECH is the symbol for biotechny, and they're going to pay, I guess, $73 a share, Pete, or about $11 billion. Just another deal that's going by. And I know what Pete's going to say. He's going to say something about those investment banks that are going to be behind this deal, right, Pete?
Well, you know what, John? We talk about this all the time. I mean, think about this, an $11 billion deal. And you've obviously going to have investment banks being a part of this thing, doing all the, the pushing of the paper and everything else that they do. But absolutely incredible. It just feeds right in. And by the way, we are just weeks away from kicking off the next quarter of earnings, starting off with the financials. So we're going to know a lot more. We're going to know a lot more about how strong things were. We already know this, but SpaceX and how things look with something like this. It's a really, really interesting move by Merck. And by the way Merck is trading post this $11 billion deal that they're doing, John, which is, a premium of about 36%. What really is impressive to me is Merck's up. Last I looked, Merck was up about 3%. So when you're making that type of a big bite into something and you're buying this company, that tells me that they're doing something very, very right. And people are pretty excited about what they're doing. And it just adds to what they've got. It broadens their life sciences and so forth. This is really great for Merck, on top of the fact that obviously, biotechny is probably feeling pretty good about the numbers that they hit.
Well, I'll tell you who's not feeling so good, Pete. That's Apple.
Yeah.
And anybody who wanted to buy a new Mac, like the MacBook Neo, for instance, they say there's an unprecedented, that's the word they used, unprecedented shortage in memory. And that's why Micron's doing so well.
Yeah.
That's why Seagate is doing so well. That's why Western Digital is doing so well.
Yeah.
All these companies that provide memory, which has to go into the computer, of course, and helps it work faster. Well, a lot of those stocks are really happy. The companies that have to buy the memory in order to place it into a MacBook Neo or whatever it might be, MacBook Pro, any of those things, they're going to have to raise prices. And when they said that, Pete, that market turned on a dime on that, just like we said top of the show. So everything Apple makes has that kind of memory in it. Some of it they can design and make themselves. They've been talking about it and doing it now for years, but they also need other stuff, Pete, and the other stuff is more expensive. So they got to either pass it along or eat it. And they said, let's pass it along.
Yeah, they did. That's exactly what they did. They're passing it along, John. I was looking at, all the different things from the iPad, the iPad Air, and all the rest of it. They're up anywhere from $100 or more for the charge there. The interesting thing that's going to happen, I think, in the fall, and I think you covered it pretty well already, John, but in the fall, what happens? Well, that's when Apple brings out the latest and greatest in the iPhone world too, right? I mean, and all that type of thing. And what will that look like? Are they going to change the prices there? That could be pretty interesting, and it could be impactful on Apple in a potentially negative way. So we'll see how things really play out. I mean, it's something that maybe their numbers are so good in that particular category where they can maybe eat it a little bit themselves. But I kind of doubt that. I kind of have a funny feeling, John, that some of those phones and so forth, those numbers are going to start kind of creeping up just a little bit. We'll see. It's down 5 or 6% today based upon, some of those numbers. So we'll see when it comes to fall, which is not that far away. I'm not trying to get rid of summer, which we're just kicking off, but September is not that far away, and that's when we're going to start hearing more and more from Apple and about what everything looks like, and will they raise prices for the phone? That's going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, and Apple's down about 5% today, folks, on this news. And like Pete said, God knows how many handsets they'll sell, also known as iPhones. But could that be crimped, that number? Could it be coming in lower than people expected because of perhaps, even though they didn't announce a price hike yet for the iPhone, aren't they probably going to have to for that? And my answer is yes.
Yes.
They're going to have to. All right. Pete, what about Qualcomm? Qualcomm surged. The company basically revealed updated revenue targets stemming from what else? Data centers. It seems like that's all we talk about today. We talked about Z squared, data centers. We talk about Micron, data centers. We're talking about Qualcomm, data centers. I mean, all of this is centered around data centers. And there's a reason why Anthropic and OpenAI are going to be two of the big hot IPOs this year behind SpaceX. And guess what they need? Data centers.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, John. They talked about revenue and the targets that they've got, and they're talking about obviously the data centers and so forth. And, you know, it's interesting. They also have some pretty strong revenue in other areas as well. And specifically, I would say maybe automobiles or something like that if you want to pull something out. But the total addressable market is amazingly strong and increasing. So when they've talked about their earnings and expectations are still looking pretty strong, it seems like people jumped on the news of this story, John, and they liked it pretty good. Last I looked, Qualcomm was up, I think, as much as 10%. So having a pretty solid day, I would say. And you know what? You've got Micron having what's now looks like a pretty daggone good day, and Qualcomm as well. But, you know, there are some losers in this thing, just like you and I just talked about with Apple. So it's not everything is a bed of roses, but certainly in the memory space and some of the other spaces, there's still a lot, John, that people are pretty excited about. And you know what? For all those who kept saying about AI being dead last year, not like earlier this year or whatever, but a year ago, telling everybody, oh God, oh Jesus, the AI thing is ready to collapse. Well, if you did that, you've missed a pretty good hell of a run. Now, so it'll be interesting to see where a lot of those folks go to now as we're seeing all of this come out, and the numbers that we're seeing. It just continues to be a pretty strong AI world that we're living in, John. And so until we see something that tells us anything different, I think it's still okay to be long.
Yep, I would say you're right, Pete. And in particular, again, where is the demand? Data centers. Yeah. You got to understand, folks, that permitting and tying up an energy contract to provide the energy for the compute, those are two critical things, and both of them take a while to work out because a lot of communities don't want the data centers if it's going to cause the community to have to pay 30%, 40%, 50% more for their electricity to cool their home or to heat their home or whatever it might be. So anyway, we'll keep making sure that you guys know that this is a very many inputs into it, from compute to energy and so forth. So anyway, Pete, I know it's World Cup time, and I have seen some fantastic plays. We showed you guys Messi's hat trick last week. I want you to watch this crazy dude because, Pete, everything from roundhouse kicks to everything else. I mean, watch this guy. That didn't look good. But look at how high he is up in the air when he's making these kicks, or this header here. I mean, just amazing. This guy is a heck of an athlete. And watch this one, Pete. Yep. I mean,
it's like Ted Lasso.
Fires a laser. Yep. Yeah. Fires a laser into the corner of the goal and so forth.
These guys are amazing athletes. You know, even a guy like me doesn't appreciate it enough, right? I don't watch enough soccer to appreciate it, what these guys look like. But when you see some of these highlights, it's like, holy crap, these guys have the athleticism to do a heck of a lot of other things, you know? And I'm not just talking about going to the NFL and being a kicker. I'm talking about what these guys look like when they're on their own field and doing their thing. And that guy, he looks big enough, John. I'll tell you what, I'd have that guy somewhere. If you could talk him into, coming over into the NFL, there's probably a space for him somewhere. Because look at the athleticism of that guy. It's unbelievable.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Just amazing. But good luck trying to get that guy. I think that guy's a little pricey.
Yeah, they're probably you know what? These guys get huge, the numbers there around the rest of the world with the TV, and then obviously, in front of people and everything else. It's amazing. We're still kind of grasping this whole thing, I think, in the United States. I mean, yes, people go to soccer. I get it. But compared to the NFL, John, nope. But that's why these guys are brilliant, because they're making huge money, right? I mean, some of these guys, it's ridiculous money what they're making, just like it's ridiculous in the NFL. But if you've got any kind of ratings on TV and you're getting people there in person, pretty damn nice. Not so bad. Hey, I'm ready to jump into the NFL for us now, John, if we want.
Do it.
And I'm going to say this. Tight ends deserve to get paid, and they're starting to get paid in a big way. And I'll throw something out there at you, and I'll see what you think about it in a second. But here's who the top 5 tight ends in the NFL with price and everything else right now as we speak. And I'm talking about how great they are along with the numbers. Brock Bowers, Raiders. Trey McBride, Cardinals. George Kittle, 49ers. Travis Kelce, Chiefs. That's starting to drop a little bit, though. And John O. Smith for Miami. And the one thing that slid into there this past year, 2025 season, Laporta. Laporta got in there. John O. Smith is out. Travis Kelce dropped down. But here's the thing. You've got 20 wide receivers who got more than 1,000 yards last year. How many receivers do you really need? Do you need I look at it, John, like there's an abundance of wide receivers, I think. So if I were a GM of a team, of course I want to have some of the best receivers that I can get. But are they that different, number 1 versus number 20? Or number 5 versus number 15 and all the rest of that, going through that, and maybe even going lower than that? I think the tight end, and you and I were linebackers in the NFL. So what do they tell you in the NFL about tight ends? Still to this day, by the way, don't worry about the tight end. Get back a little bit deeper to try to protect against the receiver. And so these tight ends, they can now run like wide receivers. A lot of them are big beyond words, but they can run like a wide receiver. They can run the same routes. And I'll tell you what, I think people are missing the boat on this whole thing, that the tight end is a bigger and bigger and bigger part of the NFL every single year. And so I look at this and I look at the Atlanta Falcons, and they decided to give Kyle Pitts, John, a 3-year, $54 million contract. He's making $18 million a year. Sounds huge, but next to some of these wide receivers that are out there, it's really a long shot away. So I just think, and I'm curious if you agree, do you think that they ought to just say, you know what, I'll take a number 20, number 25 type wide receiver. I'll put together 3 or 4 or 5 of those guys. You know what? Maybe I get 1 or 2 tight ends out there that can run around out there and catch enough balls as well. Because these guys, some of the numbers, John, are just literally off the charts, how well these guys. This kid McBride from the Cardinals, I mean, he's up there with the wide receivers for the number of catches, the number of yards, and everything else. I'll tell you what, I would build the team. I'd start with the running backs, but I'd go over to wide receivers and I'd say, well, I can get, a number of guys for a lot less money, and let me get a couple of more tight ends on the team. I mean, it seems like the NFL is starting to move there more and more. What do you think of that idea?
I like it. I like it a lot, Pete. I mean, you said McBride, he's 19 mil, and that was a new, $76 million 4-year contract, 43 mil guaranteed. Kittle, still the number 1, just slightly more than that, but only 35 million of his was guaranteed. But Pete, your guy Hawkinson, for the Vikings that you guys got out of out of a trade, I think, right?
Detroit.
You got TJ Hawkinson. Was he with Seattle, Pete, or where was he?
I thought he was either Detroit or Green Bay. I think it was Detroit.
Oh, well, he's getting 16.5 mil. And, these guys, if you use them correctly, like obviously Tom Brady did, you can get a heck of a lot of production out of these guys. Pete said Terry McBride has wide receiver kind of numbers. He's absolutely right. 1,200 plus yards last year. They targeted him 169 times and they hit him 126. And now that quarterback is on your team, Pete. Now that quarterback is on the Vikings team.
Yeah.
So, and he's got another good tight end, like we just said, Hawkinson. So I think this is an overlooked area all the time in college and pro sports, for football, that is, that the tight ends should be your go-to your go-to guys most of the time. And as soon as you get the linebacker covering the tight end, it keeps that hook wide open in the middle of the field, Pete.
Absolutely. Yep. Spoken like two linebackers. Hey, Major League Baseball, we'll just hit it real quick, Jon. The New York Mets, they got a $380 million payroll, okay? They stink. They are as bad as it can get. And so then you start looking around a little bit, and who's sitting there at number 2? It's really actually not the Yankees. Take a look at the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, you know what theirs is, Jon? $126 million. So they're $126 million. They another 300 or 240 million, and they can get up there where the Mets are paying right now. The payroll for the Dodgers is a little bit different. They're getting their money's worth there. Those guys actually, they packed the stadium. They're paying, big money to have their guys. The Yankees pay big money, but they get it back. But, you just wonder. I sit there and I look at the Milwaukee Brewers, and you and I have talked about this pitcher that's unbelievable, right? He's throwing the ball 104, 105 miles an hour and all the rest of it, and he's amazing. And how long can they, hold on to him? Well, I don't know, but again, I find it really, really interesting. If you're paying the kind of money the New York Mets are paying, at what point in time is the owner, and you and I both know who the owner is, there's a whole program, billions about him. It's pretty damned interesting, right? That they're paying that much and they stink so bad. And then all of a sudden you look over at Milwaukee, Jon, and they've built a really solid franchise in Major League Baseball. So somebody needs I'll tell you what, if you're at the Mets, whoever is choosing these players might need to start really thinking this thing over pretty good, because if I'm the owner, these guys are gone.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, like you and I always say, Pete, about baseball, that is, they don't share TV money. The only time they do is World Series and or the Sunday Night Baseball. I think that's the only time they share. So if you're the Yes Network and you're the Yankees and or the Mets, or if you're the Dodgers, you're making money that Milwaukee cannot make.
Right.
They can't make that money because there aren't enough people that care about Milwaukee Brewers baseball in the state of Wisconsin, or even dipping down into Illinois or up into Minnesota. There aren't enough people to attract the kind of TV audience that can make you the kind of money the Yankees, the Mets, and the Dodgers can get. And so the fact that they're able to put up 97 wins, for instance, on a $122 million payroll last year, that's amazing. And this year it might be even more so, Pete.
Yeah.
So, whether it's Moneyball, that famously was the Oakland Athletics, soon to be the Vegas Athletics, or I don't know, maybe they're going to change their name, Pete. You and I are going to be out there for the SAC Summit in a couple weeks. We'll have to see whether or not they're going to change their name but that stadium's under construction right now.
Yeah.
And I think, again, they've got a much bigger metro than the Brewers do. So how are the Brewers going to compete over and over and over again if they just don't have that TV money? You can't lock up the guys long term, but maybe that's the key. Maybe you don't want to lock up a guy for, $150 million and have it blow up your whole payroll.
Yeah.
We'll have to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's going to be interesting to see. And I'll tell you what, if I'm Mr. Cohen and I own the Mets, I probably would go over to Milwaukee and go, what's it going to take for you, the GM, or whoever, what's it going to take for you to move to New York? Because you know what? It ain't working what he's doing right now there, Jon, in New York. And Milwaukee, like you said, with that payroll, and they can't really get any higher than that because of all those reasons and everything else, makes it kind of interesting that they're doing as well as they are. I mean, it says a lot about what their ability is to find the right players to be out there, Major League Baseball. So interesting for sure. And maybe at some point we might see some real dollars go in that direction, right? Maybe poaching.
Yeah. Well, and it's amazing. And right now, you'd have to eat it for a few years while you wait for perhaps somebody to come up with a fair sharing arrangement for the TV revenue. Because right now, without that sharing agreement, folks, this is a real problem for all the smaller market teams like Milwaukee, Cincinnati, the Twins, all of those teams. You know, you really wonder how long they can compete without a share of that TV revenue.
Yeah.
All right. Well, great stuff, Pete. I know we don't do the show on Friday because we travel. In my case, I'll be floating. Still traveling. Still traveling. And I'm right here in Châteauneuf-du-Pape territory in France, loving it. And we're going to be back Monday, I guess, Pete, and leading into a holiday weekend, in fact. So holiday weekend, folks, means that we're not going to have once we get to the end of the week, it's going to be a holiday shortened week next week, not this week, next week. But we'll fill you in on that Monday. At what time do we do that, Pete?
We're going to be doing it at 1 p.m. Eastern time, John. We're going to get these guys going. And it's another vacation week, so it's kind of fun. 1 o'clock Eastern time.